This video explains why my search for the demon in Vladimir Putin of Russia and the Ukraine crisis is coming up blank. Hello friends, this is Unmasked Truth with Harmanjeet Saini, where I provide unique analysis of world events based on the unmasked truth that after surrender, Germany continued World War II clandestinely and became a killing machine. I also provide true news that you will find nowhere else. The United States media, since that is what I am in contact with for most issues, is demonizing Vladimir Putin by labeling him the aggressor in what is happening in Ukraine, where, according to Ukrainian defense intelligence, Russia has amassed 127,000 troops on or near its border. United States President Joe Biden, in his new news conference on January 19, 2022, stated, and Ukraine itself and the European Union think Russia is on the verge of invading Ukraine in the coming month or two. Russia denies it, even though it moved its troops to the border only about 2 months ago. The United States and European Union have promised a strong response if Russia invades Ukraine. President Biden seemed to suggest in his news conference that the United States' response would depend on whether it was a minor incursion or a large scale invasion of Ukraine. He also said that all NATO members are not in full agreement on what its response would be, except that massive additional sanctions will be part of the response. Are such statements designed to subtly encourage Putin to attack Ukraine? I'll answer that question later. An important question is, why has Russia amassed such a large number of troops on the border at this time? It already occupies Crimea, and ethnic Russian separatists, where they are in a majority in Ukraine, control the eastern Ukraine regions of Donetsk and Luhansk, known as Donbass, since 2014. Moscow says that United States and NATO supplying weapons, military advisors and training to Ukraine has aggravated the situation. The United States has admitted that it has already supplied $450 million in weapons and other aid to Ukraine and is set to supply $200 million more. Other NATO countries have supplied additional weapons. Therefore, the Russian accusation is true. Russia sees it as a threat to its security. Of course, the United States and NATO say they have supplied Ukraine with weapons so that it can defend itself against Russian aggression. Moscow also accuses Ukraine of increasing its own troop strength in a bid to take back the Donbass region. Ukraine denies the allegation. Russia sees Ukraine's attempts to seek NATO membership as a threat to its security, which it considers a red line, along with deployment of sophisticated missiles in Ukraine. But Ukraine considers seeking membership of NATO and European Union as its sovereign right. Ukraine's political and trade deal with the European Union in 2013 was the genesis of the present conflict between Ukraine and Russia. The talks were later suspended because of Russian pressure. So, whose security is at risk, Ukraine's or Russia's? The answer lies in the time the current conflict began. Only when Ukraine made moves preparatory to joining the European Union and NATO that Russia acted. There was no aggression on the part of Russia before that. I'm sure Russia has intelligence on what Germany is planning in Ukraine with the help of German masqueraders there. As Russia alleges, Ukraine must have been making preparations to strengthen its military, which evoked a Russian response. Supplying Ukraine with weapons strengthens Russian suspicions. I'm certain Russia is also fully aware of Germany and China's attempts to start the Third World War against the United States, British Commonwealth nations, and Israel. Therefore, it suspects that Germany wants to involve Russia in a conflict on its borders. Russia is surrounded by hostile China on the southeast because it has been allied with the Germans since the early 1960s. On the northwest, it has European Union members Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, and Finland, as well as NATO members. If Ukraine were to become a member of European Union and NATO, the NATO countries would be present on most of its western border. Russia remembers its history of being attacked by Napoleon and Germany in the past. Therefore, having buffer countries on its western borders with Europe is extremely important for Russia's security against the aggressor Germany. Being a former Sikh, a people in India who fought against the Germans in both world wars and are being targeted by them for destruction since the end of the Second World War, I understand Russia's security concerns firsthand. Germany has done its best to turn all people around the Sikhs into their enemies. They have made alliances with other Indians, such as India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi, and business groups in India, and have rewarded them financially for turning into enemies of the Sikhs. They've used Pakistan, particularly the Pashtuns there, to fight three major wars with India in which Sikhs and Hindus of Punjab state were the major target. Now they've prepared the Pashtuns of Afghanistan and other Afghans to invade North India in an attempt to annex Kashmir and then attack the Sikhs. China has also joined the alliance with Modi's India, Pakistan, Afghanistan, and even Iran to attack and destroy the Sikhs. Thus, everyone surrounding the Sikhs in India has been turned into their enemy. The same strategy is being attempted by Germany against Russia. Germany is attempting to turn all of Russia's neighbors into enemies. That's what the Ukraine conflict is all about. Russia sees through Germany's strategy and is preparing to defend itself proactively by preventing Ukraine from joining NATO or the European Union. It has already annexed Crimea and taken control of the Donbas region. But there is something more sinister going on in Ukraine than meets the eye. Germany is not alone in meddling in Ukraine affairs. It uses German masqueraders in the United States, Britain, and France, and other countries of Europe to the hilt to implement its various strategies. One can see what is going on in Britain. Events are being maneuvered there to transfer the office of Prime Minister and control of the government to Britons of Indian origin. Therefore, British government will be in control of German masqueraders and their allies. Evidence indicates that much of the US federal government is also likely in control of German masqueraders and their allies. The best way to illustrate what is happening in the world concerning Ukraine is the example of what happened immediately after World War II. With their total defeat, everyone thought Nazism would never arise in Germany. How wrong we all were. The Allies had started to denazify Germany immediately after the war, but German masqueraders Harry Truman, President of the United States, Clement Attlee, Prime Minister of Britain, and Stalin, the boss in Russia, were in control of government in the United States, Britain, and Russia. That's why it was so easy for the Allies to make the decision just 2 years after the end of the war to leave the task of denazifying Germany to the German government itself. Within no time after that, the Nazis were in control of government in Germany again. That is precisely what's happening in the Ukraine situation. Germany and the German masqueraders in the United States, British, and French governments are working in concert to provoke or coax Russia into a war with Ukraine. In fact, in his news conference, President Biden suggested that the US response would depend on exactly what Russia does. If Russia merely makes a minor incursion in Ukraine, it will elicit a lesser response than a full scale invasion. It sounds like encouraging Russia to enter Ukraine without much fear of retaliation, which will then be used as a pretext to actually engage Russian forces in a larger conflagration. Supplying weapons to Ukraine also seems to have been designed to provoke a conflict with Russia. Thus, the United States, British, and French governments appear to be aiding Germany's strategy to engage Russia in a side conflict while it attacks the United States, British Commonwealth nations, and the State of Israel, along with the Sikhs in India with its alliance partners China, Modi's India, Iran, and other Muslim countries, while German masqueraders will start a full blown civil war. Because Russia will be engaged in its own conflict, it will be unable to intervene in the war between Germany and its allies against the United States, British Commonwealth nations, and Israel. Therefore, I do not find a demon at work in what Putin is doing in Ukraine. Demons appear to be at work with Germany and German masqueraders in the United States, UK, and French governments to create conditions such that Russia has very little choice but to enter into a conflict with Ukraine. As a Sikh, I closely monitor what Germany is attempting in India and issue timely warnings to Germany's Indian allies to prevent them from harming Sikhs. Sometimes the warnings are issued just in the nick of time when Modi and his allies are about to implement their plans to attack the Sikhs. Putin is also alert to Germany's tactics and takes appropriate actions to counter Germany's strategies. Thank you very much for watching this video. Please continue to watch my videos and read my articles on important world events, World War III watch, politics, international business, advice on health and medical problems, and much more for in-depth and insightful analysis. Please also subscribe to my YouTube channel and Facebook channels, Unmasked Truth with Harmanjeet Saini, to view and get information on the latest videos. Some people do not have the time to go through the full length of videos. They find it more convenient to read the text of the video. Unfortunately, YouTube does not provide the facility to make the text of my videos available on YouTube. But fortunately, Facebook does provide that capability. So I make the text of my videos available on my Facebook channel, which you can then easily copy.